The Continental Divide Trail has been around as like a backpacking venue for a good many years. For how long have people been trying to ride bikes on it? And does it parallel the same hiking trail, the bike trail?
Yeah, it's actually a different trail. It definitely gets fairly close at times, and crosses over. But it's the route that the racers in Ride the Divide are on is the Great Divide Route, which was developed by Adventure Cycling Association, and so it's a little easier than what the Continental Divide Trail is. The Continental Divide Trail is more of a traditional hiking trail, and it would be difficult to have a lot of mountain bikes, stomping on that over time. So the Great Divide Route, which is in Ride the Divide, is a little bit more friendly for this endurance kind of racing that these guys do, with a lot of back jeep roads and whatnot, old mining roads that have sort of been abandoned and whatnot back in the mountains. And so, for me, it was just such a treat to get back there and to see this. But back to your original question, right? Riders have been on this trail since the late '90s when the trail was developed, and it was first time trial, I believe, in 1999 by John Stamsted, and so that's what kind of kicked off the spirit of possibly racing it. And, it was eventually turned into the Great Divide Race, which has now kind of morphed into what they call the Tour Divide.
How did you become involved in the idea of making a film about the race?
Well, I was working in Denver, finishing up my second documentary film, and I got a call from Mike Dion, and he was working at Starz Film Channel, kind of tired of the corporate thing too, and he'd heard about 10 Miles Per Hour, my first film, and was interested in just learning some stuff about how we did it, getting kind of a sense of, if we thought this might be a cool film topic. And so we sat down and talked about it, and one thing led to another, and we decided to team up and make this film, and raised a little bit of money, and which is good. It's always the tough thing with these films, but it was all go, and he was ready to quit his job and become part of the story. So he was the 40-year-old sort of kind of non-elite athlete or extreme endurance guy who's going to go out and try to ride this race. He's got the minivan and the family and all that, and so we were sort of imagining that would be an important part of the story. And so we're excited about that, but then I was a little bit like, what happens if he doesn't make it? So, that was one of the concerns when we first started shooting. We figured out, how to circumvent that if that did happen, and bring in some other key characters into the story.
You mentioned Mike Dion. Mm-hmm. And how did you select the other two people that are kind of the focus of the story?
Well, initially we definitely knew that the first female to attempt this race, this distance, was going to be very important in the story. So we wanted to spend some time with her. So I flew out to LA and did kind of a pre-interview with her. And then Mike, as he was kind of researching the race and getting to know it, he flew out to North Carolina to meet with Matthew Lee, who had ridden it at that time, I think it was 4 times, and he had a wealth of information, and so he was able to go out and spend time with Matthew. And we knew that Matthew would essentially be the favorite of the race that we were filming. And so we felt at that point that these were potential characters, but getting into the story, we didn't know, with limited budget. We had one unit to cover this whole story at the start. We didn't know if we'd be able to cover everybody because they spread out so fast. And so when you watch the beginning of the film, you'll see a lot of the different racers. You'll see us, spending. We spend 18-hour days out there trying to cover characters, and we're trying to get a sense of how the story is going to develop. Because if there's a new character that pops up, or somebody that's really important to help tell what happens, we had to figure out how to get on that quick. But fortunately, as things evolved and the way that they went, we got a second unit at the end of the story. So we had two jeeps out there running around. We were able to cover the characters that we thought would be critical to the story. So we definitely, I think, did a good job anticipating who would be the good characters. But the hard thing is, they're all good.
At what stage did you think, wow, this is maybe falling apart, or these, my characters are not going to make it, none of them, or what?
Sure. Oh yeah, there's a couple of those, and truthfully, it was probably the very beginning of the film. From a film standpoint, there's each of these racers is having many low points all along the way. You're seeing them break down. You're seeing their vision of finishing just crumble, and ups and downs, and they get it back together again. It's wild to watch that. But from a production standpoint, we put together pre-production on this pretty fast, and fortunately I'd had the experience of doing a couple of these kind of run and gun films. When once you're on for that whole period of time. You just you sleep as little as possible, and you live and you try to be as close to the subjects as possible. But with the way that it was starting, we were just a little underprepared. We didn't have maps of Canada. And so we actually get lost in the first day trying to cover the story. And we don't make it to the race on time when it starts. And I know Mike, by this time, Mike is in racer mode, so he's out of the production mode. He's not able to, to do anything. He's just got to be focused on the fact that he's going to be out there for weeks, trying to ride. And so I know we didn't actually see him until the second day, in the middle of the day. And I know he was just sweating, going, man, I put a lot into making this film happen already, financially and time-wise. And so we're out there trying to track him down. So we were a little underprepared to start, and I remember getting into edit going, God, how are we going to tell that, part of the story?
For the riders, what do they do at the end of the day on the trail?
Yeah, so it's random. I mean, each rider does it a little bit differently. A lot of people are very scared of the grizzly country, and so in the early days of the race up north in Montana, in Canada, they'll often stay in motels. It's self-supported, so they're out there by themselves. They can't, stay with a friend or anything like that. They've got to do whatever they do. Everybody else has to be able to do it. It's got to be equal. But they can spend their money to support themselves however they need as they go. No one can bring them food or anything like that. But when it comes to sleeping, they channel it differently. Now, Matthew, I know, some of the riders that are a little more experienced, they'll often camp. They've got bivy sacks, whatever the lightest possible thing they can carry with them on their bikes. They've got real easy, solution to just kind of crash in, a few minutes.
Did you have a hard and fast rule, being the filmmaker, as to how you would interact with the bikers, as far as like offering assistance and things like that?
Sure. I respect the race because it is totally self-supported, so I didn't want to assist anybody in any way. If there was an emergency situation, we definitely would have done something, I found like just talking to them and hanging out with them was already influencing their experience, so it was a little bit difficult at times because I knew that each of these riders was out there to do this for themselves and for some various reason, they wanted to go through this insanity of 2,700 plus miles, but you do kind of form a relationship with your subjects as you're out there, and that's important. That's necessary to kind of get inside. But I always found myself just trying to give them as much space as possible. But there were a few times where you cross the line and you get around them too much, and you start to annoy them just because they need to be focused and keep going, and every little thing at certain times along the race will annoy them. Like if you're in a Jeep right behind them and you're making a lot of dust or a lot of noise, it just gets into the head and starts to drive them a little crazy. So there wasn't any really hard and fast rules, but we just tried to respect them as much as possible. But there's a few times where I definitely I look back on the story and I'm like, I wonder if us being around caused slightly different outcomes at various points.
Did you yourself, Hunter, get on a bike during the filming at any point?
Only a couple times. We had a couple bikes with us, but I did most of the stuff that I did because I was carrying equipment and everything. I would hike in and find a couple of key spots to shoot from, but a lot of the time we were able to access the places we need to by Jeep, and so didn't really get on too much, and it's one of those things, even spending all this time now promoting it and in these communities, I'm like, God, I wish I had more time to get out there, and go ride. So it's something, but I'm not a hardcore rider like the people in these films. I'm more of a cruiser and a simple mountain bike trail kind of guy.
Are you planning another film already?
Yep, we've got a few things in the works. We want to make another bike film for sure to keep going here, and especially for Mike Dion. He's an avid cyclist, and we've talked a lot about some different ideas, something with cruisers possibly, and a couple of other cool ideas. But I've been working pretty hard on putting together funding and everything for a float down the Yellowstone River up in Montana. Again, it's an area I have fallen in love with, and it's just amazingly beautiful. It's the river that Lewis and Clark used as part of their guide to get across on the big expedition, and William Clark floated back on. It's the longest undammed river in the USA. So, you know, it's a special piece of history, and there's a lot of really cool little, like, true Western towns along the way that, you know, don't really exist anymore.
Well, Hunter, have fun tonight, and where are you going from Dallas?
We'll be in San Antonio tomorrow night, and then we've got a number of screenings that are taking place different places around the U.S. Back to Texas on September 22nd. That's a really big kind of commercial release for the film that we're doing. It's a big day and date event, and we're benefiting Livestrong with the launch. And so over the course of a few days, it's going to be on TV, it's going to be on YouTube, and basically starting September 22nd, anybody that buys the movie for a 10-day period, or DVD, Blu-ray, or iTunes, we'll give 50% to Livestrong. So we're going to do a big effort and launch the movie out in Austin, and be there live with all the stars and do some live streaming. So it'll be a pretty fun experience, and get to come back to Texas. So I'm pretty excited about that.